Last year, I harvested just over 4 pounds of dried medicinal herbs from a single 12-foot by 4-foot bed behind my tool shed, and that one harvest replaced almost every over-the-counter remedy my wife and I used to keep in the bathroom cabinet. Cough syrups, sleep aids, digestive teas, skin salves. All of it. And the herbs I grew were stronger, fresher, and considerably more potent than anything I'd been buying in capsule form for the better part of 20 years. For most of my gardening life, I treated medicinal plants the way I treated decorative flowers. Stick them in the ground, water them now and then, and hope something useful comes of it. The harvests were thin, the potency was weak, and I never really trusted what I made from them. Then, a few years back, I started spending time around an Amish family in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and what I saw in their kitchen garden completely reset my thinking. They were growing what amounted to a working pharmacy on a strip of ground smaller than most suburban driveways, and the quality of what came out of it would make a herbalist proud. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how they do it, step by step, so you can grow pharmacy-grade medicine in your own backyard this season. And stay with me to the end, because I will share a simple Amish trick for preserving the medicinal strength of dried herbs that I have never seen written down in any gardening or herbal book. I want to be straight with you before we go any further. I did this wrong for a long time. I planted echinacea once, harvested it in August because the calendar said August, dried it on a screen on my back porch in full sun, and ended up with a jar of pretty pink dust that did absolutely nothing when I needed it. I blamed the seed. I blamed the soil. I blamed my zone. What I should have blamed was my approach. If you have tried growing medicinal herbs and walked away thinking the magic just was not there, I was right where you are. The magic is real. The methods I had been using were just stripping it out at every stage. What changed for me was watching how my Amish neighbor Daniel and his wife Sarah handled their medicine garden. There is a guiding principle in Amish life called Gelassenheit, which roughly translates to yielding to the natural order. They do not approach a medicinal plant as raw material to be processed. They approach it as something living that needs to be grown, gathered, and stored in a way that respects what makes it medicine in the first place. That sounds philosophical, but in practice it is intensely practical. The Amish raise large families on limited acreage, and a doctor visit is expensive. Their medicine garden is not a hobby. It is healthcare, and every choice they make is shaped by that. Here's what I learned from Daniel and Sarah, and how you can apply it to your own backyard. The first thing to understand is that the medicinal strength of a plant starts in the soil, long before you ever harvest a leaf. The active compounds in herbs, things like the echinacasides in echinacea or the bisabolol in chamomile, are stress response chemicals. The plant produces them in greater concentration when its roots are working in living, mineral-rich soil, rather than sterile potting mix or tired ground, so here is what to do. Every fall, after your garden winds down, spread 3 to 4 inches of well-aged horse or cow manure compost across your medicine bed and let it sit through winter. Daniel turns it in lightly with a broad fork in early spring, about 3 weeks before his last frost date. He does not till deeply because deep tilling destroys the fungal networks that medicinal plants especially depend on. If you are in zones 3 through 5, lay your compost down in October. If you are in zones 7 through 9, you can do this as late as December. The point is to give the soil biology a long, quiet stretch to integrate that organic matter before planting. Now let me show you exactly which plants to grow, because this is where most people go wrong. They plant a dozen pretty herbs and end up with no real medicine. The Amish medicine garden is built around 5 workhorse plants that handle roughly 80% of common household ailments. Echinacea purpurea for immune support. Calendula officinalis, the pot marigold, for skin-healing salves. German chamomile for sleep, digestion, and anxiety. Common yarrow for fevers, wounds, and circulation. And peppermint for stomach complaints and headaches. Plant these in a single dedicated bed, not scattered through the vegetable garden. Daniel sets his medicine bed apart on purpose because he wants to control exactly what goes on those plants. No fish emulsion over spray. No accidental neem oil drift. Medicinal plants must be grown clean from start to finish because every drop of what you put on them ends up in the tincture you give your grandchildren. Space your echinacea plants 18 inches apart. Calendula and chamomile go 12 inches apart, and they both reseed freely, so you only buy them once. Yarrow needs 18 inches as well because it spreads. Peppermint must be grown in a buried container, a 5-gallon bucket with the bottom cut out and sunk into the bed up to the rim, or it will take over everything within 10 feet by the end of the second season. I learned that one the hard way. Here is where the Amish approach really separates itself from a typical herb garden. Daniel does not water his medicine plants on a schedule. He waters them deliberately less than he waters his vegetables. The reason comes down to plant chemistry. A medicinal herb that is pampered with constant moisture and rich fertilizer grows lush green leaves with weak chemical concentration. A plant that has to reach a little, that experiences mild dry stress between waterings, produces dramatically more of the volatile oils and compounds that give the plant its healing power. So water your medicine bed deeply once a week, soaking the soil to about 6 inches down. Then let the surface dry out before watering again. Skip the fertilizer entirely after that fall compost. The Amish gardeners I know never fertilize their medicine bed during the growing season. Not once. They treat hardship as part of the recipe. The conventional approach is to baby herbs the way you baby tomatoes. The Amish approach is to let them work for it. The result is a plant that is shorter, sturdier, more aromatic, and 3 to 4 times more medicinally active. If you are picking up what I am putting down and you want more of these deep dives into traditional gardening wisdom from the cultures who have been doing this for generations, hit subscribe. I have got a lot more of these coming, and I read every comment. All right, let us keep going. The fourth thing I learned, and the one that made the biggest single difference in my own harvests, is that timing is everything. There is a narrow window for each medicinal plant when its active compounds are at peak concentration. And if you harvest a week early or a week late, you lose half your potency. Daniel taught me a simple rule. Harvest flowers in the morning after the dew has dried, but before the sun gets high. On the second or third day, they are fully open. Harvest leaves just before the plant flowers, when its energy is concentrated in the foliage. And harvest roots in the fall of the second or third year, after the tops have died back and the plant has pulled everything down into the ground for winter. For chamomile and calendula, that means walking out around 9 in the morning with a basket and pinching off the fully opened blossoms. Do this every other day during peak bloom, and the plants will keep producing for 6 to 8 weeks. For peppermint and yarrow leaves, cut the top third of the plant just as the first flower buds appear, which in most zones is mid to late June. For echinacea root, wait until your plants are at least 3 years old. Then dig in October after a hard frost. Take half the root and replant the crown so the plant continues. The Amish never harvest more than they need, and they always leave the patch capable of regrowing. Once you have harvested, the next step is drying, and this is where most home herbalists destroy their medicine without realizing it. Direct sunlight bleaches out the volatile oils. Heat above 95 degrees Fahrenheit cooks them off. Humidity above 60% invites mold. The Amish solution is beautifully simple. They tie small bundles of herbs, no thicker around than your thumb, and hang them upside down from rafters in a dark, dry, well-ventilated space. An attic, a back porch with the shades drawn, a closet with the door cracked. Anywhere that is dim between 60 and 80 degrees and breathing. Most herbs dry completely in 7 to 10 days. They are ready when the stems snap cleanly instead of bending. At that point, strip the leaves and flowers from the stems and store them whole, not crushed, in glass jars with tight lids, kept in a dark cupboard. Whole leaves and whole flowers retain their oils. The moment you crumble them, you start losing potency. The Amish only crush right before use, never before storage. Now let me share a few patterns I see in modern medicinal gardening that the Amish approach handles differently. No judgment here. I did all of these myself. The first pattern is treating medicinal plants like decorative perennials. sticking them in a flower border, never harvesting on time, and ending up with weak, woody plants. The Amish dedicate a working bed to medicine and treat every plant as a crop with a harvest schedule. The second pattern is overwatering and overfertilizing. We were taught that more is better. With medicinal herbs, more water and more nitrogen produce bigger plants with weaker medicine. The Amish let their plants experience controlled stress on purpose. The third pattern is harvesting whenever it is convenient, instead of when the plant is at peak. A chamomile flower picked on the wrong day has a fraction of the active compounds of one picked at peak. Timing is not optional. It is the difference between medicine and garnish. The fourth pattern is drying herbs in the sun or in a warm oven. Both will give you fast results and chemically empty product. Slow, dark, ventilated drying is the only way to keep what you grew. Now here's the bonus I promised you, and it is the single most useful thing I have picked up from any Amish family I have spent time with. After Sarah dries her herbs and packs them into glass jars, she places one small piece of unglazed terracotta, about the size of a quarter, into each jar before sealing it. That little chip of clay absorbs any residual moisture that escapes the dried plant material over the months of storage, and it keeps the contents bone-dry through humid summers and cold winters alike. She breaks an old terracotta pot into pieces, bakes the pieces at 200 degrees for 30 minutes to sterilize them, and uses one piece per pint jar. I started doing this 3 years ago, and the difference in how my dried herbs hold their color, scent, and potency from 1 year to the next is genuinely remarkable. Jars I opened 18 months after sealing still smelled freshly dried. No plastic desiccant packets, no chemicals. Just a chip of fired clay doing what it has always done. That is what I have learned from my Amish neighbors about growing pharmacy-grade medicine in a backyard bed. Build your soil in fall. Plant the 5 workhorse herbs, withhold water and fertilizer on purpose. Harvest at the right hour on the right day. Dry slowly in the dark. Store whole with a chip of clay to guard against time. If any of this changed how you think about homegrown medicine, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Tell me which herbs you grow, what you make from them, and what your own grandparents or neighbors taught you. And if you want more of these deep dives into traditional gardening wisdom from cultures that have been doing this for generations, go ahead and hit subscribe. Thanks for spending time with me today. I will see you in the next one.